Good morning, Church of the Crossroads. Thank you so much for joining us online today. We are very excited to be working on our new building and getting it ready to move us all in. So we appreciate your patience and being with us digitally while we get all those ducks in a row. A couple housekeeping items before we get going today. If you would like to give, if you feel led to give, even though we're meeting online, you can still do that. Just visit our website at cotcky.org, and there's a give button. You can tap on that, follow the instructions there if you feel led to do so. Also, we're going to take communion together in a little bit. So if you would take just a moment, maybe pause the video if you need to, and get some crackers or some bread and some juice, and be ready to take communion together as a family as we get going. If you would, take just a second. Give everybody in your house a big hug, and then we'll take off and get started in worship. Singing, oh, precious is thy flow that makes me white as snow. No other fount I know. I am washed, I am washed, I am drenched in love. All souls atoned by the blood of the Lamb. I'm not a slave to what once held me down. How beautiful that cleansing flood. I am washed, I am washed, I am drenched in love. Singing, oh, precious is thy flow that makes me white as snow. No other fount I know. I am washed, I am washed, I am drenched in love. Oh, 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 oh. All filth made clean in that crimson sea. I'm not ashamed of what once shackled me. How infinite that grace divine. I am free, I am free, I am a child of God. Oh, precious, singing, oh, precious is thy flow that makes me white as snow. No other fount I know. I am washed, I am washed, I am drenched in love. Whoa. There's power in the blood of Jesus. How priceless, how precious. There's power in the blood. There's power, power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There's power, power, wonder-working power in the blood. With Christ my Lord, now I'm raised to life forevermore. My name's been carved upon your heart. No, not death, no, not hell could ever rip us apart. Here we go, oh precious, singing, oh precious is thy flow that makes me white as snow. Lift up a shout of praise in your home.
Hey, Church of the Crossroads, just to echo what Roy said earlier, we are so excited that you decided to join us as we kind of make this transition into the new building and take a couple weeks to move online with everything going on. And just before we really get started, I do want to thank the people who came out on Wednesday night and helped us move into or kind of unpack and put some furniture together as we did that. A lot of small group people came, and it was just a good time. It was fun, and you guys helped us out so much because now we don't have to put that basketball hoop thing together that took forever and a bunch of other stuff that ended up taking a little bit longer than maybe we would have thought it would. So thank you so much for that, and we appreciate that so much. And just for the next couple of weeks, we're actually going to look at a few ideas about everything and some specific things. But before we dive into that, I mean, we've said this so many times, and it might have even taken away what it actually means, maybe in a little bit. I know I've said this a lot, but what a crazy time it is. What a crazy time it has been. 2020 was wild to begin with, and now it's not even February yet, and so much has happened in the month of January, and what a crazy time it's been. We've seen so much chaos. We've seen some division, but I think we've also seen a lot of good kind of sprinkled in and out of there. And through this whole time, what we're kind of going to look at today, and what I kind of want to get us to think about is what has the church been doing in this time, or how should the church be acting in this time? Because I think if we would take a poll or kind of talk to people who may not be Christians and ask them what Christians are like or what Christians do, I think we'd get a lot of things we don't really want to hear. But I think that's kind of reason for us to talk about it and for us to think about it and maybe do something differently. Because I know a lot of people label Christians as hypocrites, and that's a huge conversation that can go a lot of different ways, so we won't break down into that too much. But I think to an extent that's true. Like that can be a reality at sometimes. Or maybe if you talk to servers at restaurants, the people they don't want to serve are the Christians because the Christians don't leave good enough tips. They don't tip as well as other people. And I mean, why is that? Why are we doing that? Why are we getting caught up in these things? And how have the Christians been doing this when that's not what we're called to do? And that's kind of what we're going to look at today, and kind of what we're going to focus on today is how might we be different with everything? How could we be different? How could we represent Christ better in a world that might need a little bit more Christ, might need a little bit more Jesus? And we're actually going to look in Philippians chapter 1 to start that out today. And Philippians was written by a dude named Paul. And high school students, you know who Paul is. We've talked about him a lot. I ask every week, hey, who is Paul? Can you tell me who Paul was, what he did? So Paul was initially killing Christians. He went from killing Christians for what they believed to starting churches, to preaching the gospel, and ultimately ended up imprisoned. And so when he's writing to this church, Philippians is a letter to a church, to a set of believers, kind of like us in Mount Washington. And Paul wrote this letter to them in the midst of their persecution from prison. So Paul is in prison writing to a group of believers who are being persecuted for what they believe, who are literally being killed for believing in Jesus. And it's kind of encouraging. It's not the same context that we're in today, but I think the truth from then to now remains the same. So Paul is kind of encouraging them, telling them what he's been through. And in chapter 1, verse 27, he gets to this. He says, "Only live your life in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ, so that whether I come and see you or am absent and hear about you, I will know that you are standing firm in one spirit, striving side by side with one mind for the faith of the gospel, and are in no way intimidated by your opponents. For them, this is evidence of their destruction, but of your salvation." And this is God's doing. He says, only live your life in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ. He said, be united, firm in one spirit and in one mind. And I know we're not in the same context, but there's a lot of stuff going on right now. And I guess my question is, are we doing that? Are we doing a good job of representing Christ, of, in his words, living our lives in a manner worthy of the gospel by being united as a church front? Are we doing that in this time? Because what I think happens is people that don't believe in Jesus look at people who believe in Jesus to see who Jesus is. And I think that's the reality. I think that's why I've been told personally that, hey, Jesus sounds cool, but the people who follow him aren't that cool. So I'm just going to stay away from Jesus. And I think we get caught up in that idea, and it's distracting for a lot of people. My mind kind of thinks weird, so the image that I've always used for this is it's January. So there's a lot of New Year's resolutions, and a lot of the resolutions revolve around getting healthier. Maybe losing weight, getting more active, finding a gym, starting to run finally, eating healthier, whatever it may be. And let's say you're walking around looking for a trainer, you're an athlete trying to find somebody, or you just want to find a gym that is doing the right thing, and you find somebody, and you're talking on the phone, and he says, no, I have a workout plan, I have a diet to get you on, and we're going to see results. I actually do it myself, and it's awesome. I'm happy with what we're doing, and we're going to do the same thing. And then you go to meet him, and he's not even in shape. And the people he's training aren't even in shape, even though they've been with him for a long time, and there's just no results. See, that's not a good representation of getting in shape and actually changing and doing something. Or maybe you take a family trip to Cancun, right? It's awesome. And when you get there, you find locals in the area and say, hey, take me to the best place to get authentic Mexican cuisine. I want the best Mexican food I have ever had. And they're like, okay. They slip you the piece of paper. You go, you find it. It's in some back alley. And this is what happens when you get there. You're looking through the menu. You're going with the classic that you would get here. A lot of people eat this, but you don't want to butcher the pronunciation, right? So you kind of just point to the menu. The server comes over. He's looking at it. And he kind of looks down to where you're looking, to where you're pointing, and he goes, the arroz con pala. And you kind of maybe you adjust your glasses if you're wearing them, I don't know. But you kind of look at it and you think, that's not how you say that. And he said, no, the arroz con pala. And you're like, whatever. And hey, if you're ever at a Mexican restaurant around here, and you like that dish with the chicken and the rice and the spices and the cheese, and that's how you pronounce it, it might be time to switch something up, because that's not right. But this is what the waiter said, and you're in Mexico, in Cancun, and this is what's happening. And as he takes the menu, you actually look up, and there's actually a window into the kitchen, right? And you're seeing who's cooking your food. But when you look up and realize that it's me, it's Collin Patterson standing there representing the whole nation of Mexico and their cuisine as I'm whipping up this arroz con pala, that would not be good. It would not be good. I would not be representing Mexico well. Now, if you want eggs, I'm pretty good at eggs. That's like my specialty. I like to hang around what I'm good at, and eggs is that. So if you ever want to come over and have eggs, I'm all for that. But not Mexican food. I should not ever represent Mexico in what they serve for food. But as I look around, I kind of see that happening with Christians, is we're not representing the best that we could be. And I'm not saying it's easy. Trust me. I'll tell you firsthand, it's not always easy representing Christ, but maybe we can get a little bit better at it. Because when I look around, I see myself, I see friends, I see churches, I see people that claim to follow Jesus not acting like Jesus. And I think recently, an easy one to pick out, just with everything that's going on, is social media. I mean, how many people post something on social media and they have the Christian stamp in their bio and they're about me, and they just get on and destroy someone in the comments, or start a conflict with another Christian about something that ultimately won't matter at one day, whether it's politics, whether it's sports, whether it's something. I see Christians get on and just rip each other apart, or rip someone who doesn't even know Jesus apart, and for what? Are you think that'll be a good representation of who Jesus is? Might be time to question that. Maybe it's not worth that, or maybe if we get off of social media, maybe it's family situations. And maybe what's going on is there's a different priority, and maybe a parent is spending too much time at work, or something is so crazy and the kids just want to spend time, and then you're not representing Jesus well to your kids. And they see Jesus as someone who doesn't have time for them, who's someone who doesn't take the time, who doesn't care about them enough to actually get to know them and spend time with them and love them. Or maybe it's as simple as gossiping. And you're a coworker, and there's a group in the break room, and you go in and they're talking about somebody, and you say, and it's finally my time to rip on this person. They've been driving me insane all day long. And now those people that are sitting at the table that hear you rip into them, that's how they see Jesus if they don't know Jesus, as someone or Jesus as being someone who gossips or is okay with that happening. And guys, I don't know if that's the best way to go about it. There's so much stuff that we could dive into, but I think those are three big ones. Is how well are we representing Jesus in the midst of culture. Because here's the thing, people that don't know Jesus look at people that know Jesus to see who Jesus is and how he acts. And that's tough sometimes, and that's hard. But what I think we can do, I think there's an answer to how we can get better at this, because ultimately we're never going to be perfect. I will never be perfect at it. You will never be perfect at it. But I think we can do things to get better at representing Jesus well. And we're going to go with the idea of keeping the first thing first, keeping what's most important. And I think Jesus answered what's most important in Matthew 22. So in Matthew 22, he would walk around and teach and talk to people about this sort of thing. And then the Pharisees had a question one time, so kind of like the ministers, the teachers of the law at that time, and they sent a lawyer to him. And you guys may have heard this verse before. It's a pretty popular one. If you haven't, you're about to. But this is kind of what Jesus was about, and I think if we put it to practice for us, it'll change some things. So it's Matthew 22, verse 36, and it says, "Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest?" And Jesus said to him, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself." He's saying, this is Jesus talking. And he's saying, hey, this is the greatest commandment, that you love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, and with all your soul. And I think sometimes when we get confused, when we're not representing well, is when we kind of shift that priority. When instead of loving God and loving others, we put maybe politics. We put maybe how we feel about something. We put maybe our opinion right above that, and we're not keeping the first thing first anymore. Maybe we put our job above God. Maybe we put our reputation above God. Maybe we put money above God. Whatever it may be, we put it above God, and then we slip, and then we don't represent him well. And I think something that has stuck out to me just with different experiences and talking with different people and understanding Scripture a little bit more is that when first things first, we rely on ourselves less. When the real first thing is first, we rely on ourselves less. And what I mean by that is when God is first, we change. When God is first, rather, he changes us. And that's a big thing, because when we mess up, a lot of the times, at least with me, it's because I try to do something. It's because I try to do this, I try to do that, I try to do that. But in reality, when first thing is first, it is God doing something through me. And all I have to do is choose to pick him first. It's almost that simple, but it's not easy. Right? So when first thing is first, you rely on yourself less. And when God is first, he changes you. You change. And what would that look like if we changed? Like, how would this play out? How would the first part of Philippians with representing Christ well and then keeping him first, what would that look like? And I think we could talk for literally days about everything we could do if we put Christ first. And I would love to talk for days about that, and I'm sure everybody else on staff would too, or even people that lead small groups or anything. They would love to talk about what we could do if we let God guide us for days. But I want to focus on one thing, and it's back in Philippians, and it's chapter 2. And this is Paul again, same letter, talking to the same people. And I really like this because it can honestly be simplified as, when in doubt, be humble. Right, and that's what I kind of want to look at. And it's chapter 2, verse 3. And it says, "Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility regard others as better than yourselves. Let each of you look not to your own interest, but to the interests of others. Let the same mind be in you that was in Christ Jesus." And get this part, "who, though he was in the form of God, did not regard equality with God as something to be exploited, but emptied himself, taking the form of a slave, being born in human likeness, and being found in human form, he humbled himself and became obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross." So when we look at what does this look like, it looks like Jesus. And we're not going to get it perfect. I mean, that's just too much to ask. We can't get it perfect. But what would it look like if we tried to imitate Jesus and he left eternal comfort, eternal peace, eternal love, and came down to walk the earth? But even then, he didn't compare himself to God or treat himself as God. He walked around and served people and put them before him, and ultimately went to the cross What would happen if we tried to do that, if we tried to live like that, if we put people in front of us? I'm sure people's perspectives of Jesus would change, because if we started acting like Jesus, who knows what's going to happen? What would that look like? What would it look like if you told work no, maybe, and you spent time with your kids and you actually poured into them and raised them up to be leaders? What would happen if instead of destroying someone on social media and talking about this and talking about that, of ultimately isn't going to give you freedom to begin with? What would happen if we actually sat down and listened to someone and were quick to listen and slow to speak? What would happen? What would change? I'm sure there'd be a lot less division. And Paul was getting at that in Philippians of, hey, be unified. This whole humility thing leads to being unified. So what would happen if maybe we took a second, we took a step back, we put someone else in front of us and said, how can I serve you? I mean, that's what Jesus did. And what perspectives would change of hey, maybe instead of the worst tippers, the ones that we don't even want to serve because they're not worth our time, what if we became the best tippers? What if that happened? What if we became the people that they wanted us to come over? This is actually something I kind of got excited about. Not that I wasn't excited before, but this is how I kind of picture this happening. So I get really excited when I see that the Amish built something, right? Because when the Amish build something, you know it's the real deal. Like it is, they're going to build a mansion, and it's almost going to be perfectly square. And I don't know how they do it, but it is amazing. It's going to last forever. It's genuine. They work hard at it. What if people got excited about Christians coming to help them out as they did, or as I did about something being built by the Amish? I get jacked up when I see something built by the Amish. What if instead of it being a negative thing, when you said, hey, I'm going to be praying for you, people said, yes, thank you so much, because I know there is power in that by how you live your life. Because I know when you show up, I'm going to get served. I'm going to be loved. I'm going to know that there is a voice behind me, and you're going to stand up for me and defend me. Like, what would happen? So much stuff would change. And guys, I think that might be the answer. Right? With this whole idea of how we should act in times of chaos in the midst of all this, I think it begins with, one, recognizing what is going on. Recognizing that, hey, we need to live a life worth that of what Jesus did. Worth the life of Jesus and his death and his resurrection. I think it starts with that, but it starts initially with putting what is first. Keep what is first. And when God is first, we're going to change because he changes you in that. And I think that'd be so cool. I think that'd be awesome. What would social media look like? Probably be a lot quieter. That's not a bad thing. What would your neighborhood look like if you served your neighbors as Jesus has served you and also them? What would your schools look like? What would your kids' schools look like? What would your workplace look like? What would Christians look like? What would Jesus followers look like if people could trust them and rely on them? And guys, that's kind of the challenge. I'm going to leave you with one last challenge, and then we're going to get into communion. And that is this. If you are the only picture someone gets of Jesus today, make it a good one. You see, if people are going to see Jesus through his followers, if you are the only picture someone gets of Jesus today, make it a good one. Make it the best one. Because it could be the difference between someone coming to know Jesus and someone denying him yet again. Make the picture a good one. That's my challenge. What would happen? What would it look like? And now we're actually going to go into a time of communion where we can remember Jesus and what he did of ultimately coming down, like we talked about in Philippians 2, but coming down for a purpose, willingly coming down to a purpose to get taken to a cross, to get nailed up to a cross with our shame, with our guilt, with embarrassment, ultimately with our sin, dying, being buried, and then resurrecting 3 days later, letting everybody know that he is greater than that he took our sin and it is gone, that he can forgive us, that he ultimately took sin's greatest weapon, which is death, or that has no more power over us, and we can actually live free in freedom. So the music's going to come back on, but take a few minutes with whatever you grab, whether it's juice, whether it's water, whatever it is, and the cracker or the bread, and prepare your hearts, prepare your minds to remember the sacrifice that Jesus made. not only for me, not only for you, but for everybody. Let's pray. God, thank you so much just for the reality of you, just for your goodness, just for your grace, and for everything that you have done for us so that we can actually experience freedom and freedom to the full. God, I pray that we don't waste that. I pray that we remember and can be reminded that you need to be number one. Because when you are number one, things just tend to work out better, God, and I pray for strength for us that we can do that. But I just pray that we don't waste the freedom that you bought for us. God, thank you so much for who you are. Thank you for what you have done. And it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You've been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You've been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. When I felt no word, you paid it all for me. You've been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Reckless love. Shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, a lie you won't tear down, coming after me. No shadow, come on. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. You can have it all, Lord. Every part of my world. Would you take this life and breathe on this heart that is now yours? And all the joy I found, surrendering my crown at the feet of the King, who surrendered everything, and all the peace that comes when I'm broken and undone by your unfailing grace. I can lift my voice and say, you can have it all, Lord. Every part of my world. Would you take this life and breathe on this heart that is now yours? You can have it all. You can have it all, Lord. Every part of my world. Would you take this life and breathe on this heart that is now yours? can have it all, Lord. Every part of my world. Would you take this life and breathe on this heart that is now yours?
Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us online this week once again, and we look forward to seeing you next week, same time online, as we continue getting ready for the new building. We hope you guys have a great week, and we will see you later.